Namaste and Jai Swaminarayan. Welcome to this week's episode of Timeless Hindu Wisdom. This is a special web series delivered by the Swamis of BAPS Swaminarayan Sanstha. It has been initiated to inspire us during these challenging times with the universal wisdom of ancient Hindu scriptures presented in a contemporary, bite-sized format. Originally from Virginia in the United States, Brahmasetudas Swami graduated with a degree in journalism and political science from the University of Southern California before being ordained as a sadhu by His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj in 2006. He has been studying Hindu scriptures, classical Sanskrit and Indian philosophy in India for 16 years and has a master's degree in Vedanta. Brahmasetudas Swami currently serves as a lecturer at the BAPS Swaminarayan Sanskrit Mahavidyalaya in Sarangpur, India. He has also authored several academic articles and books, including a textbook on the Akshar Purushottam Darshan Karikas, published from the Kaikulu Guru Kalidas Sanskrit University in Maharashtra, in conjunction with the BAPS Swaminarayan Research Institute in Delhi. He is an engaging speaker, having spoken widely on Hindu teachings, values and practices. So let us now hand it over to Pujya Brahmasetudas Swami.
Shri Swaminarayan Bhagwan ki jai, Akshar Purushottam Maharaj ki jai, Gunatitanand Swami Maharaj ki jai, Radha Krishna Dev ki jai, Siyavar Ramachandra Bhagwan ki jai, Umapati Mahadev ki jai, Pramukh Swami Maharaj ki jai, Mahanta Swami Maharaj ki jai, Pramukh Swami Maharaj Shatabdi Mahotsav ki jai. Namaste and Jai Swaminarayan. We begin our first session with an analogy told by Akshar Brahma Gunatitanand Swami of a bundle of sticks that was unbreakable because the sticks supported each other. From this, we understood the integral role of family unity. And from the Gita, we considered how unity finds voice through Krishna's willingness to articulate love, take out time, listen, validate, and exhibit humility. We also thought about how these expressions empowered Arjuna and how we may apply similar methods to support and empower our children. In this final session, we'll consider that same bundle of sticks, but from a different angle. Sure, the sticks supported each other and became stronger through that, but they also became strong by deriving support from each other. While our previous sessions discussed how unity can help us support our loved ones, this final session will focus on how it can help us derive support from our loved ones. For inspiration, we'll consider Arjuna's expressions of solidarity towards Krishna and see how we as grown children can apply these methods to our relationship with our own elderly parents, so we may benefit from their wisdom and strengthen ourselves in the process. Standing in unity with our parents means no matter how far we make it in life, we always honor their role as our elders, caretakers, and benefactors. It means not only being sensitive to their protective instincts, but also actively striving to have them as an intimate part of our inner circle so long as possible. And it means we approach them from a position of gratitude, positivity, and humility. Indeed, our religion exhorts us to so honor our parents. The Taittiriya Upanishad recounts an acharya imparting wisdom to a graduating class. This teacher surely advises truth and righteousness and industriousness, but also encourages the students to honor their parents. Matru Devo Bhava, be one unto whom the mother is treated like a goddess. And Pitru Devo Bhava, be one unto whom the father is treated like a god. The teacher then signifies absoluteness by stating Esha Adeshaha, Esha Upadeshaha, Esha Vedopanishat, Etadanuशासनम, Evam Upasitavyam. This is the quintessential mandate This is your instruction. This is the Veda and Upanishad. This is your direction. Live according to this. Growing up, you also may have heard tales of people imbibing this teaching. Shravan, who carried his blind parents on a pilgrimage across the Holy Land. Or Pundarik, who asked Bhagwan Krishna to wait while he busily attended his mother and father. There's also a tradition in our culture wherein people communicate such sentiments by bowing to their parents. There's a boarding school near our ashram here, and many of the students who are living away from home for the first time in their lives come with small passport-sized images of their mom and dad. And before starting each day, they very endearingly gaze upon the photographs, reverently touch them, and bring their fingers to their eyes and heart as they pray for blessings. Interestingly, we're not alone here. In Judaism, honoring one's parents makes up 2 of the Torah's mitzvahs, presented in the books of Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. And rabbinic literature presents it as analogous with honoring the divine. In Christianity too, the 1 Timothy and Ephesians describe it as inextricably tied to one's faith. For both traditions, it's considered the 5th of the 10 Commandments. Similar pronouncements too appear in the Quran's Surat al-Isra and the Islamic Hadiths. And aside from religion, honoring parents also seems a moral obligation. As the eminent philosopher Mr. Fred Rogers once chimed, our parents loved us into being, silently helping us become the wonderful people we are today. Honor and respect, therefore, are the least we owe them. Nonetheless, it's challenging. We exist in a cultural bubble, surrounded by media that encourages us not to be beholden to others. We are betrothed to an individualistic concept of happiness, and we celebrate autonomy as a benchmark of progress and fulfillment. Our parents come from a different generation, though, and may not share these values. Their thoughts, too, on the role of family or on academics, careers, marriage, child-rearing, and social etiquette may vastly differ from our own. Age also brings with it a host of physical and emotional challenges. Yet, there may be a way we can wade through these challenges to forge a sense of oneness with our parents. Doing so will surely help us fulfill obligation, but will also fortify us as individuals. Let's learn a bit from Arjuna here. How does he stand united with his benefactor, Krishna? What types of challenges does he face? How is he strengthened by his actions? And what does this mean for us? Firstly, Arjuna's oneness with Krishna manifests through him seeking advice. Arjuna does start off on the wrong foot, self-consumed. Yet he then pleads for help through tears. Yet shreyasyan nishchitam bruhitan me shishyasteham. Tell me what is undeniably best, for I am your disciple. Reaching out like this exposes a weakness, and so it isn't what you'd expect from a warrior on the brink of battle. Yet Arjuna's oneness and innate respect for Krishna allowed him to open up in this darkest and most embarrassing of times. And so it was that he benefited from Krishna's insight and fortitude. One of the biggest challenges we face in going to our parents as such is we often don't see them as part of the team. Our pride makes us want to ignore or hide our vulnerability and show we can stand on our own 2 feet. But capitulating to such emotions disables us because we end up blacklisting an utmost reliable source of solace and critical intuition. In our parents, we have in close proximity genuine people who are singularly invested in our progress, are always willing to help, and are constantly in our corner cheering. These are also people with deep wells of experience that allow them to grapple with issues in uniquely profound ways. For instance, in the book Team of Rivals, Author Doris Kearns Goodwin describes a youthful Abraham Lincoln tormented by death. Lincoln's mother, Nancy, to whom he attributed everything, passed away when he was 9, shattering his family's fragile stability. 10 years later, his sister died in childbirth. Not knowing how to process the devastation, young Abe merely sat on a log and hid his face in his hands as tears rolled through his long, bony fingers. 7 years later, his first love passed away, and his sadness deepened on gloomy days as he imagined the snow and rains battering her grave. The author, though, notes Lincoln's familiarity with death imbued him with strength and a deep understanding of human frailty, as reflected decades later in his letter to a girl who'd lost her father in war. Lincoln validates the girl's sadness and provides perspective as to how pain affects us at different stages of life. This genuine solace could only have come from someone who themselves had experienced trauma of this sort. Such tragedy also helped Lincoln appreciate the graveness of his every decision as a wartime president. Our parents, too, carry with them the battle scars of a hard-fought life, and they've had decades to ruminate. Their depth of experience is thus a ready tool we can harness for personal strength. Let me give you an example of someone who's done this. I grew up during the Michael Jordan years. As kids, we watched simply enthralled as this man drove down those baselines, worked his magic in the paint, and lit up their arenas night after night. Flight number 23 would take off. With the rock in one hand, he'd read the defense in mid-flight, switch hands, kiss the ball off the glass, and miraculously score. After which, Marv Albert's voice would cascade through the television set. A spectacular move by Michael Jordan. Then on the playground, you'd see so many kids trying to play just like him, practicing those fadeaways, driving with their tongues, swinging out, confidently letting their hand hang in the air after having shot, and calmly pumping their fist after a tough score. That's how you were supposed to play the game. Everyone wanted to be like Mike. Well, here's another inspirational angle. He was close to his parents and constantly took their advice. His beloved father was the voice of reason and maturity that both challenged him and kept him grounded. His dad's words further reassured him, and so when he was criticized for taking up baseball, he knew he was doing the right thing because his father had told him so. His mother's words, on the other hand, helped him reconfigure. And so when his dad passed away, he was able to weather the storm by heeding his mom's advice to be grateful. Recognizing his parents' wisdom and goodwill, he thus invited their words and made them the beams and trusses of his approach to life. We too should strive to make our parents an integral part of our lives. We only stand to benefit from their love and intuition. If nothing else, even just the simple act of asking recognizes their share in our present state of being. And remember, there may just be a future time wherein we long to hear their voice, but all that's left will be our memory of it, and maybe too, the guilt of not having listened while they were around. Let's then, from today, actively strike conversations with them and seek their invaluable advice. Arjun's unity further finds voice in the way he listens with an open mind. We see this in his questioning, for though Krishna consistently presents opposing thoughts, Arjun asks searching questions that keenly follow Krishna's lines of argument. For instance, Krishna tells him in the second chapter that he should cultivate singular faith. Arjun immediately asks to know the characteristics of someone with such faith. Samadhisthasya sthitapragnasya ka bhasha, kimasita vrajeta kim. How does one of such unyielding faith speak? How does such a person sit and move about? In the third chapter, Krishna speaks about the sin of inaction. And Arjun quickly asks why we sometimes sin, though we wish not to. In the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th chapters, Krishna speaks about the entities of Akshar and Purushottam. The 12th chapter then commences with Arjun summarizing and asking for clarification. In the 14th chapter, Krishna speaks about one who is gunatita. Arjun wishes to understand how such a person can be recognized. Arjun surely felt he was right, but he thus deeply seeks to understand Krishna's viewpoint. And because he does, he's able to realize his own missteps. For us, learning from Arjun means, of course, we should solicit advice. But we should also be mature enough to engage with that advice. Often, we're so fragile in terms of self-confidence that we need to be right. And so, when our parents speak, we become apathetic or defensive without considering what they're actually saying. The Atlantic quotes a UPenn psychologist, analogizing that we often guard our opinions like one might guard a fortress, as if to surround them with crocodile-filled moats, high watchtowers, and intricate booby traps meant to scare off any would-be transgressors. We may always want to be right, but we often aren't. Poised not to listen, however, we end up like the cartoon stooge Elmer Fudd. The poor man is laser-focused on blowing Bugs Bunny's brains out. He leans forth, casting his patented death stare down his shotgun's expansive barrel, without realizing there's a carrot plugged into it. He pulls the trigger, and it blows up in his face. Invested as we are in our own actions, opinions, and decisions, we often can't see our failings. In our parents, though, we have people who love us, know us, and can see things we can't. I don't mean to say we need to take up their every suggestion. They aren't omniscient, and maybe they can't relate completely. But at least stopping to understand the world inside their heads can strengthen us. A third way Arjun's unity with Krishna manifests is through his ability to understand Krishna. This too strengthens Arjun by allowing him to absorb criticism and stay focused on Krishna's message. Let me explain. We mentioned in our first two sessions how delicate Krishna is with Arjun. This is indeed true, but just as well, laced within his delicacy are points wherein he scrutinizes Arjun to help him realize his flaws. In the second chapter, for instance, he praises Arjun's innate strength, but then calls him out for the weakness he displays in the moment. Kutastva idam akirtikaram kashmalam. Wherefore this disgraceful timidity? Klebyam masmagamaha. Don't entertain such cowardice. And kshudram hridaya dorbalyam tyaktotishta. Cast aside this lowly faint-heartedness and arise. He later also points to Arjun's confusion and says his decision not to fight is egotistical. Arjun, however, doesn't consider this a personal attack. He utilizes it to introspect as he responds by admitting his flaws, describing himself as karpanya dosho pahatas swabhavaha, one besieged by excessive compassion, and dharma sammuda chetaha, one who knows not right or wrong. The criticism also doesn't make him shrink away, for he later exclaims his deep affinity for Krishna's words, Bhuya kathaya truptirhi shrunoto nasi me mrutam. Speak at length. Indeed, I am never overindulged hearing your nectar-like words, and sarvametad rutam manye yanmam vadasi. All this you say to me, I believe to be true. Arjun thus receives criticism with grace. I argue this is possible because he understands Krishna. That is, he recognizes his charitable intent and sees him in totality as someone who's always been at his side. These two approaches are important for us because we know our elders deserve respect, yet things become muddled when mannerisms or preferences or opinions diverge. In other words, when we feel they're being repetitive, insistent, nitpicky, or old-fashioned, when they comment about the way we dress or spend our time and money, or when they express strong opinions on how we should raise our children. If such discord is constant, a wedge can quickly develop And with it, out the window may go our first 2 points of seeking advice and listening with an open mind, and in may come a host of negative emotions. But we maybe can navigate such conflict by understanding our parents. This means first peeling back a few layers to consider their motives. Arjuna trusted Krishna's intent. He knew Krishna wished only the best for him. And so he uttered the words we earlier saw, Yat Shreyasyan Nishitam Bruhitan Me Shishyasteham. Tell me what is undeniably best, for I am your disciple. Our parents, too, likely only want the best for us. No matter how mature or successful we may be, they often just see us as their ever vulnerable babies, and their protective instinct drives them to wish for our safety and happiness. We may not agree with their presentation, but focusing instead on their goodwill can help us avoid negativity. Second, understanding our parents means knowing their entire being, rather than considering simply what we see as present before us. Arjuna never forgot it was God speaking to him, even in disagreeable moments, and he thus referred to him throughout, using monikers like Achyuta, the imperishable, Bhagavan, one with divine powers, Prabho, one who is resplendent, and Purushottama, one who is preeminent amongst living beings. He also didn't lose sight of the joy and comfort Krishna had given him as a companion, which he mentions in chapter 11, verses 41 and 42. And I'm sure he also hadn't forgotten the times Krishna had stood with him in poverty and forgave his greed and decadence, as the sage Vyas describes in the Mahabharata. Particularly in times of discord, we too must remember we're dealing with our parents, the very people who nurtured us when we needed it most. They changed our diapers. They cooked our favorite meals. They made sure we wore mittens and hats to stave off the wind. They chauffeured us around, and they beamed while we rode the carousel. They took part in our joys. They shared our world. And amazingly, they did so while going through their own struggles, double jobs, tending the house, pursuing degrees, dealing with relationship struggles, gender discrimination, and racism. They may have come from immigrant families, leaving everything they knew to brave uncharted territory. They may have had trouble learning English, and their accents may have been mocked. All this they did in part so we could have a better future. An individual who meant a lot to me when I was younger had come to America as a graduate student around the time of the Iran hostage crisis several decades ago. He was once spat on by bigots who assumed he was Iranian. This grossly unwelcoming gesture, though, didn't dampen his resolve because he wished his 2 unborn daughters and son good fortune in the land of opportunity. It's in light of such countless and heart-wrenching sacrifices they made for us that we should evaluate their present being. We should also understand that the rough edges we presently behold could be the product of circumstance. Remember, there was a time when they were our superheroes. They could reach the highest cupboards in the house. They knew every answer to all the questions in the whole wide world. Our kid talk and goofiness lit up their hearts, and their beaming smiles and hugs lit up ours. They were doing so much for us, and it meant everything. It made us feel safe, and it made them feel needed and in charge. Those were their golden years. But that world came crashing once we hit adolescence. They weren't needed as much, and they concurrently witnessed their own decline. Their physical appearance, ambitions, energy, health, everything began to fade. This onslaught can be too much, terrifying in fact. It may leave a parent even resenting their child's independence. Lacking the tools to vocalize or manage their feelings, they may too become irritable, irrational, or overbearing. That's simply what age can do to a person. We must be extremely sensitive of such dynamics and accommodate for them by never losing sight of the larger picture. Interestingly, we often conceive of unity in principle as a mutual endeavor. But notice how the solidarity we describe here is deeply personal. It expects nothing of others and focuses solely on what we as individuals can do to be one with others. Here, the deck is in our hands. It's up to none other than us to decide how to think, act, and speak so as to forge and foster unity. As Arjuna understands Krishna, let us therefore on our part seek to understand our parents by focusing on their charitable intent and knowing them in their entirety as people who have sacrificed and thus deserve nothing but our deepest honor and respect. In conclusion, I'd like to say that both types of unity we discussed in these sessions, that with our children and our elderly parents, require humility, courage, and a lot of prayer. Moving in this direction surely empowers us and our children individually, as we've discussed, but perhaps more significantly, it also solidly establishes a culture in our family wherein mutual respect and caretaking are the norm. It provides our children and those around us a strong example that says, hey, we go the extra mile to look after each other, come what may. This culture of sticking together, that's our true strength. As it said, the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. And so our personal dedication to unity comes around full circle, empowering us, empowering the individuals around us, and empowering all of us as one. Thank you so much for listening. Namaste and Jai Swaminarayan.
Thank you for tuning in to this session of Timeless Hindu Wisdom. If you have any feedback or would like to send in any questions for upcoming sessions, please email timeless@uk.baps.org. We look forward to you joining us again next time. Thank you.